Hi, I have a serious topic to bring up with you, one that I'm deeply concerned about. The first part of it, I'm going to read from an article I wrote yesterday and another article that I wrote today so that you can kind of get a feeling for the first portion of this. So there was an American citizen supposedly deported to El Salvador's notorious terrorism confinement center, which has an alternative name, and that name is CECOT. I don't know what that stands for. I'm sure it's in Spanish or Portuguese. In any event, so I kept on hearing news about an American citizen who had been deported along with the Venezuelans illegally. But I was not entirely sure I could trust the news because I keep on coming against this problem from right and left that people are either passing on fake news that they don't realize is fake, or they are the originators of the fake news. So I have to fact check it, and I suggest that all of you fact check as well, because this is becoming a really big problem. Regarding the claim that an American citizen was sent to El Salvador, I have yet to find anyone fitting that description. However, there is a man who came here illegally as a teen to escape Barrio 18's efforts to force him to join in El Salvador. What happened was his mother had a business, and they said, you either pay us or we're going to force your son to join Barrio 18. He didn't want to. Now, he didn't request asylum when he arrived, which I would assume, or as Sean Connery would say, assume, was because he was a kid who didn't know the law and probably didn't speak English either. It seems he arrived in 2011. And I referenced an article from The Guardian about that. When the Trump administration sent those immigrants to El Salvador to be slaves in a prison, a labor prison, no less, they sent at least one man, Kilmar, Abrego, or it depends on who you ask as to what his name is. I'm just going to go with Kilmar, Abrego, Garcia, or Mr. Garcia, or basically, for whom a judge granted him withholding of removal status in 2019 because of the credible danger against him by the gang that caused him to flee El Salvador when he was 16. This is effectively a form of refugee asylum. The government claimed that proof of his membership in MS-13 included wearing a Chicago Bulls hat and hoodie. That was when he was detained without being charged because he was hanging out with some guys. I think it was at a stadium. Obviously gangs. But it doesn't seem that any credible proof was provided. In court on March 24th, 2025, the government admitted that they were aware of the order protecting Mr. Garcia, but there had been a clerical error. The government removed him in violation of laws regarding the deportation of immigrants, which requires due process through the court, and worse yet, in violation of Reagan appointee Judge J. Harvey Wilkinson III, who had ordered that none of them be deported, that is, Mr. Garcia and all the Venezuelans. The government argued that those airplanes had left prior to the order and that once they left American airspace, they were beyond the jurisdiction of the judge. However, lawyers have weighed in on this, and they say that is not true. However, so that also violates American law. So they've repeatedly, the Trump administration, ICE, have violated American law in regards to their deportations. It seems that the Trump government has no respect for laws unless the laws benefit them. Trump has invoked the 1798 Alien and Sedition Act, which is specifically also called the Alien Enemies Act, which is specifically for the removal of foreign nationals who come from an enemy nation during war or who represent a threat to the U.S. Now, the AEA is only part of the Alien and Sedition Act. It has been claimed that the POTUS is using this incorrectly, but I don't see that to be the case since drug cartels are a legitimate threat to our country, even if the source of their presence is Americans seeking and buying illegal drugs. However, the AEA requires that the person so accused be given a court trial with jury prior to being deported, which did not happen, and thus the current administration have violated the AEA's terms. I must point out that the AEA is a dangerous act because the last page, Section 1, grants the right to prosecute anyone who exerts their First Amendment rights of free speech and or freedom of the press by criticizing the U.S. government, the POTUS, and or Congress if they decide that what was said and or written is false, scandalous, and malicious. If the court, in a trial by jury, finds for the government, the person may be fined up to $2,000 and or 2 years in prison. I will get to that later. Mr. Garcia's right to a trial by jury was ignored, as was the protective order. Indeed, every deportee, as far as I know, was denied their right to trial by jury. Further, the AEA does not give the government the right to remand deportees to a foreign nation for immediate imprisonment in a labor camp or otherwise. If the other deportees were Venezuelans, not El Salvadorans, why were they imprisoned? Apparently, there was a monetary sum paid by one side or the other. Maybe America paid El Salvador some money. Maybe El Salvador wanted free labor, so they paid America some money. I would guess that America got paid by the president. I'm sorry. He says he's the sweetest dictator in the world. So the dictator of El Salvador probably paid America to get those slaves to work for him. Please note that based on this act's text, our current POTUS could have been imprisoned for certain acts he took, including the January 6th insurrection that he encouraged, because although he was POTUS at the time, he was acting in his capacity as a candidate for re-election to the position of POTUS, not as the POTUS, which is an important distinction that has already been made and upheld in court this year. There is also the issue that the AEA states that a letter be given to the foreign national thus identified under the AEA or left at their place of residence and says nothing about immediate detainment. In fact, quite the opposite. Foreign nationals who receive such a notification are given a time frame in which to leave the country with possession of their of their stuff, after which they may be apprehended for failure to do so unless the POTUS deems them to not be in danger, which means they would have to beg the president for help, and probably means give him money, since, you know, that's how Trump works. I mean, here's the guy who says, come to Mar-a-Lago, give me money, and I will help you out. And come to the United States, pay us $5 million, and I'll give you a green card, a gold green card. So, yeah. Now, I just need to add to this, just kind of rationalizing why they immediately detained him and the other Venezuelans, is because there is a long history of people being given notice that they must leave the country, and rather than leaving the country, they flee and go into hiding somewhere else. And so I can appreciate that they're violating the law, but they're doing so because a lot of foreigners will choose to evade ICE rather than following the dictates of a letter that was given to them telling them to go away back to their country. Many of them have left their countries in Latin America to avoid the drug cartels, the gangs, and poverty. Not to mention countries like Venezuela, where there isn't a repressive dictatorship, in El Salvador, where there's a sweet dictator, the nicest dictator in the world. Yeah, whatever. And I referenced the Alien and Seditions Act, which is in the archives.gov. Okay, when it was discovered that Mr. Garcia was deported in violation of the protection ruling from 2019, and you'll have to pardon me if this is a bit repetitive because I wrote this when it was late and I was tired. Judge Paula Xinis, Xinis, ordered the Trump administration to secure his return by midnight Monday night, last Monday. But Trump and et al. Apparently didn't seem to think that it was important to return a protected foreign national. This is despite the fact that the government actually admitted that it was an error and mistake to have done so. I mean, sending him out to El Salvador. Also, Mr. Garcia has a work permit from the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security. He has never been charged with a crime or convicted, but someone claimed he is or was a member of MS-13, but no proof was ever provided as far as I know. Now, Pam Bondi, whom I am losing all respect for, has claimed that DHS and or ICE gave proof that he is or was an MS-13 member. Now, let's make a distinction here. If he, at the time of arrest, had given up being an MS-13 member, then it is questionable that he would have been arrested and deported to a slave labor camp. If he is a current member of MS-13, they should publish the proof when they are legally allowed to do so, and somebody from DHS and or ICE should come forward and state yes, we have actually got proof. We will release it after it's no longer a court matter or whatever you want to call it, because right now his family and friends are suing in court, or whatever I guess it would be suing in court, to try and get his return. So again, not only do the law and the protection order not matter to Trump at all, but his wife and 5-year-old son don't matter either. His wife is American, and therefore his son is too. He will serve hard labor in El Salvador because of a clerical mistake, and Trump et al. Have washed their hands of him with help. Trump et al. Whined to the corrupt SCOTUS, and Chief Injustice Roberts ruled he didn't have to secure Mr. Garcia's return by the deadline and issued a TRO, which is a temporary restraining order that stops an action from a lower court from being carried out. In my opinion, and Trump did this by skipping an intermediate court that he should have gone to first, because SCOTUS is corrupt. I mean, we've got Roberts, Thomas, Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, and Alito, who all are aligned with Trump and will kiss his butt, although Roberts sometimes flip-flops. But as far as I'm concerned, they're all traitors and should be arrested and send them to El Salvador. Let them have some justice of the same kind that they are imposing on other people. In my opinion, therefore, skipping higher courts and going directly to the SCOTUS is a legal violation in which Trump et al. And Roberts have engaged in a conspiracy. TROs, by the way, cannot be appealed. Trump has already tried to appeal one TRO that I'm aware of, and the judge that he appealed it to said, no, you can't appeal a TRO. The Department of Justice suspended one of their own lawyers, Erez Reuveni. I'm sorry, Erez, I don't know. Reuzeveni, who expressed exasperation with the unwillingness of the Trump administration, his client, to respond to some of his inquiries, and told the judge he had questioned why the government could not bring Abrego, Garcia, or whatever, Kilmar, back to the United States. Dodge boss Bondi had previously instructed all Dodge lawyers to aggressively pursue the agenda of the Dodge in all cases, which is why Mr. Reuveni was suspended. Now, I understand that she expects everybody to do their job in accordance with her rules, that they aggressively pursue the agenda of the government, but I feel it's to be, I don't know, I kind of feel like this is a violation of Mr. Reuveni's freedom of speech. Then again, he was acting in the capacity of a Dodge lawyer, so maybe he doesn't have freedom of speech when he's representing the government. So I referenced USA Today's article about that topic. In a stunning breach of judicial protocol, the SCOTUS delayed the judgment for the return of Mr. Garcia, possibly indefinitely. And I referenced an article on MSN.com about that. Speaking about the El Salvadoran prison, Zinnes described the terrorism confinement center as one of the most notoriously inhumane and dangerous prisons in the world. That's saying a lot given some of the crappy prisons there are in the world, including in the United States. And that by design deprives its detainees. Oh my God, I'm really struggling to speak correctly here. I'm sorry. Deprives its detainees of adequate food, water, and shelter, fosters routine violence, and places Mr. Garcia with his persecutors, as in Barrio 18. Because, yes, in El Salvador, they do have Barrio 18 and they do have MS 13. So he's in the same prison with the people from the gang that wanted to force his mother to pay up, or they would take him into the gang. And I referenced Wikipedia article about the deportation of Kilmar, Armando, Abrego, Garcia. Or, he's got, I don't know which name is correct. Pam Bondi claims that the DHS provided proof of his leadership role in MS-13. VP Never Trumper Vance falsely declared that Mr. Garcia was convicted of being a member of MS-13, which is absolutely a lie. Human puppet Caroline Leavitt, an apparent professional PR officer / liar, falsely accused him too. The DHS pro scumbag Tricia McLaughlin, I don't know, Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs at the Department of Homeland Security, also claims that Mr. Garcia is a known MS-13 member. She claimed that there was due process for all of them, but refused to explain what it was. Looks to me like a kangaroo court in the bathroom. Further, she claims that more than two immigration judges and an appeals board had ruled on this. Keeping in mind, again, that since Trump has invoked the Aliens and Seditions Acts, that they are, by law, supposed to be given a trial by jury, not a trial by a judge and an appeals board. This is improper procedure, violation of law. And I referenced the NPR article about this incident. Just to explain, PROs, or public relations officers, have the job of telling the public whatever their employer requires of them, and often do so in violation of the law because a contingent of lawyers are there to protect them and because they have no morals. That's my opinion, and I'm sure I'm right. That is, and I firmly believe that all PROs should be imprisoned, including this puppet Leavitt. She should leave the United States. Yeah, that would be what her name means. Leave the U.S. Leave it. As an aside, if people on student visas engaged in any lawless behavior, the U.S. government has the right to revoke their visa and deport them. Just like when I lived in Indonesia, I had to be careful not to get my visa revoked and be deported. Just because you have a visa doesn't give you the right to break the laws and doesn't give you all of the rights of citizenship. I am not referring to Mahmoud Khalil, who has not been charged and they have not alleged any crime, apparently, but have revoked his green card. Permanent residency is a step on the road to citizenship, but is basically a visa that doesn't give you the same rights as a citizen in many countries, and imprisoned him. So he is also married to an American woman, and she is pregnant. However, Khalil was involved in illegal occupations of buildings, Alexander Hall of Columbia, which was vandalized, and a school janitor injured, and the Barnard Library, where classes were disrupted. Given that this source is Jewish and Mr. Khalil is pro-Palestinian, I do not have any faith in anything said by the Isaac puppet of Israel. I don't have problems with Jews. I have a problem with Israel. And that is, I referenced two articles, one from AP about Mr. Khalil's activities, and then one by the Jewish Chronicle, Times of Israel, about that as well. Okay, so that's where we are so far. Now I'm going to go to the article that I put out. Oh, it's more of a post, really, today. Did you hear about what ICE did to Renato Subotic, the Australian MMA coach, who came here to teach at his seminar? This guy is world famous. He came here but was detained by ICE on the border because they claimed there was a problem with his visa. He was thrown in federal prison, a dangerous one, and had to fight two Mexican gang members because they were stealing his sheets and stuff. He was approached by other prisoners from Venezuela and other countries who warned him about the gang and that they weren't done with him. It didn't matter that he showed ICE everything about his reason for being here. He was targeted for being brown. Our government is now run by white supremacists, period. When he was brought out of jail, instead of being allowed to maybe go to the rest of his seminar, he was deported. He's an Australian. He was there on legitimate business. And because he looked like a Latin American, which he might very well be, although there are people in Southeast Asia that look like Latin Americans, he was treated like crap. How long is it before actual Americans are treated like Mr. Khalil and Mr. Garcia and Mr. Subotic? To carry on now, so now we come to what I briefly mentioned earlier in the first article that I read to you. And again, those were my articles, what I wrote after doing some research. There is a thing called the Alien and Seditions Act. Now, the Alien Enemy Act is from 1798 and has been invoked by the president. I do not know if he also invoked the Seditions Act or if it's even still valid. However, they are often combined together when referenced or even used, I suppose. Excuse me. So what I want to do here is I want to read to you the third page of the Alien and Seditions Acts. And so the Alien Enemies Act was approved on June 25th, 1798 and July 6th. And I think, yeah, so it's a little bit confusing, but it looks like it was in the second session in the Senate, signed by John Adams, and then I guess before that it was approved by the House. Well, I don't know. Anyways, so I'm very concerned about the Seditions Act. At least I assume this is the Seditions Act, judging by what it says. The Seditions Act is not about foreign nationals, not about alien enemies. It is about anyone who says the wrong thing. Now, we have the freedom of speech and the freedom of the press, right? Don't forget that as I'm reading this. So this is an act in addition to the act, an act for the punishment of certain crimes against the United States. Fifth Congress of the United States at the second session, begun and held at the city of Philadelphia in the state of Pennsylvania on Monday, the 13th of November, 1797. So this is a different thing. I don't think Trump has invoked it. I'm not sure if it's even still law, but if it is, it's extremely dangerous. Section 1. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, that if any persons shall unlawfully combine or conspire together with intent to oppose any measure or measures of the government of the United States, which are or shall be directed by proper authority, or to impede the operation of any laws of the United States, or to intimidate or prevent any person holding a place or office in or under the government of the United States from undertaking, performing, or executing his trust or duty, and if any person or persons with intent as aforesaid shall counsel, advise, or attempt to procure an insurrection, riot, unlawful assembly, or combination, whether such conspiracy, threatening, counsel, advice, or attempt shall have the proposed effect or not, he or they shall be deemed guilty of a high misdemeanor, and on conviction before any court of the United States having jurisdiction thereof, shall be punished by a fine not exceeding $5,000, which is, at the time that this was written, a massive amount of money, and by imprisonment during a term not less than 6 months and nor exceeding 5 years. And further, at the discretion of the court, may be holden to find sureties for his good behavior in such sum and for such time as the said court may direct. So basically, this section actually is relevant to the January 6th insurrection, in which Trump and various and sundry criminals engaged in an attempt to take over the government, and for which Trump was behaving again as a private citizen, a candidate for president, not as the president, that's been the judgment of the High Court underneath the SCOTUS. Now, the rest of this is what I'm concerned about for us. Section 2, and be it farther enacted that if any person shall write, print, utter, or publish, or shall cause or procure to be written, printed, uttered, or published, or shall knowingly and willingly assist or aid in writing, printing, uttering, or publishing any false, scandalous, and malicious writing or writings against the government of the United States, or either House of the Congress of the United States, or the President of the United States, with intent to defame the said government, or either House of the said Congress, or the said President, or to bring them or either of them into contempt or disrepute, or to excite against them, or either or any of them, the hatred of the good people of the United States, or to stir up sedition within the United States, or to excite any unlawful combinations therein for opposing or resisting any law of the United States, or any act of the President of the United States, done in pursuance of any such law, or of the powers in him vested by the Constitution of the United States, or to resist, oppose, or defeat any such law or act, or to aid, encourage, or abet any hostile designs of any foreign nation against the United States, their people or government, then such people being therefore convicted before any court of the United States having jurisdiction thereof, shall be punished by a fine not exceeding $2,000, again a massive amount of money in 1797, and by imprisonment not exceeding 2 years. So think about that. If the government, any representative acting in the capacity of dealing with a situation where somebody is judged to have produced anything false, scandalous, and malicious against any part of the government of America, except for SCOTUS, apparently, they can be fined and or go to prison. And go to prison. So, does that mean that everybody who engenders Trump's ire and the Republican Congress and the Republican SCOTUS's ire will be prosecuted in court and sent to jail and fined? Now, for a lot of us, including myself, $2,000 is a lot, and 2 years is a lot. I am not somebody who will survive prison very well. I will likely come out insane and violent or dead. But still, since I am vehemently and repeatedly exposing Trump's lies and illegal activities, for which many of which he is protected from persecution or prosecution, I should say, am I and everybody else going to end up going to jail? Do I need to delete all my messages, all of my videos that criticize our current dictator-in-chief? I mean, he's breaking the law basically every day. Does that make me wrong for exposing the behavior, for exposing his lies? Because they have already demonstrated a willfulness to persecute, to turn the executive branch and well, really all three branches into a government to persecute anybody that they don't like. And I feel that this is going to be the next step once they're done persecuting the legal and illegal aliens. And for those of you who haven't heard, Trump has just received news from SCOTUS yesterday, I believe it was, that almost 1 million people who applied using this app under Biden's administration and came into the country, that they're here illegally. So we're going to see a roundup of almost 1 million people more because SCOTUS has decided to side with Trump on this and many other things. It's as people were predicting. Although the SCOTUS has ruled against Trump in some things where the majority went against him, including Roberts. Okay, now, sections 3 and 4 I'll read now. 3, and be it further enacted and declared that if any person shall be prosecuted under this act for the writing or publishing any libel aforesaid, it shall be lawful for the defendant, upon the trial of the cause, to give in evidence to his defense the truth of the matter contained in publication charged as a libel. And the jury who shall try the cause shall have a right to determine the law and the fact under the direction of the court as in other cases. Now, considering the fact that people like Khalil and Garcia and all those Venezuelans who were deported against the orders of Judge Wilkinson III, or whatever his name is, were not given trial by jury as is required by law. Will we? Will we have a jury? Or will we just have a kangaroo court like Garcia did? Section 4, and be it further enacted that this act shall continue and be enforced until the 3rd day of March, 1801, and no longer, provided that the expiration of the act shall not prevent or defeat a prosecution and punishment of any offense against the law during the time it shall be enforced. So, theoretically, I'm gonna look this up real quickly, but theoretically, the Sedition Act does not actually have any power anymore. Okay, so now I understand. The Alien and Sedition Acts were passed during President John Adams' presidency, and this was because of internal turmoil in which the Federalists were criticizing the government and President Adams. And they didn't like that, so they used their powers to oppress the Federalists, which resulted in their defeat in the 1800 election, and to suppress their freedom of speech. The Sedition Act was allowed to expire on March 3rd, which was the last day of Adams' term, and President Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson, pardoned those convicted under it. So, the Sedition Act is no longer relevant, so I can breathe a sigh of relief about that. And I hope that Trump understands and will respect the fact that it hasn't been valid for 224 or so years. Whew. Man, I was really getting nervous about that, thinking about that, and for some reason my brain didn't say, you should research that. My brain just said, oh no, disaster. But see, there is one small problem. That small problem is this. As I have repeatedly pointed out over the last few weeks, the last 2 months of Trump's presidency that he stole, he has repeatedly broken the law. Federal law, state law, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. He's violated them all and continues to do so. And there are actually Republicans who are talking about revoking the act that gave presidents the power to dictate tariffs, because actually tariffs are a power of Congress, not the president. But back in, I think it was the 70s, the Congress got lazy or whatever and gave that power to the president, which was stupid. But I'm really, as an American, I'm deeply, deeply concerned and even afraid of the direction that this is heading in, because I have studied enough history in recent years and studied enough psychology to see that the direction that we're heading in is reminiscent of several other countries, past and present, that have been taken over by a dictatorship or plutocracy. Now, America, in my observation, has been an oligarchy for a very long time. An oligarchy is basically where the country is ruled publicly or privately by the people with the most power in the country. A plutocracy is ruled by the people with the most wealth and power in the country. So plutocrats are more powerful than oligarchs, really, because they have. So we could call Elon Musk and Trump and all these other billionaires that are directly involved in the government in Trump's cabinet plutocrats, because they're, and then Zuckerberg and Gates and Brin and Musk and who's the other one? Anyways, all of these billionaires they are plutocrats and technocrats, and the people like Zuckerberg and Thiel and Musk, they want to turn this into a technocracy, which is basically some kind of a weird kind of like pseudo monarchy or something like that. And Thiel, who thinks he knows everything and clearly doesn't, given what I've heard, anyways, and I'd have to actually read his writings to see if he's an idiot or not, or just ignorant. But he seems to think that freedom and democracy are incompatible, and that America should be carved up and South America should be carved up into technocracies. So yes, I'm afraid. I worry for my children. I worry for my family. I worry for my friends. I worry for you, my viewers. I worry for complete strangers. I worry for the rest of the world, because what happens when the world's theoretically most powerful nation becomes a dictatorship? That is a very, very dangerous situation that will ultimately either lead to a massive shift in how governance happens in this world, or a war that will make every other war before it look like nothing. So I beg of you, please think with your mind. Set aside your prejudices, your hatreds, your fears, your hopes, and look with clear sight and neutrality at the actions being taken by our government, by SCOTUS, by POTUS, and by Congress. And ask yourself, are these actions in line with the law? And there are members of Congress, Republicans, who have admitted that what is being done, some of the things are illegal. But you can't make an omelet without breaking eggs, as if that is cooking analogy is relevant to reforming the government. If you've gotten this far, thank you so much for listening this far. And if you could be so kind as in the comments, please write, "I will try." That's it. You don't have to write anything else. Just write, "I will try." Thanks for watching, and have a great day.